We'll be right out there trying to get a hold of you and show you where it's at.
Just today, dispatchers in the Schuyler County 911 Center
10-4, Truck 2.
were scrambling to pinpoint the location of a fire.
It's right behind Lloyd's house. It is a bulldozer fire.
As the current emergency telephone system doesn't include GPS capabilities and has no way of tracing where calls come in from.
The way it works now, we have to I need your name, we need directions to your home, and all of this takes time, therefore slowing down the emergency process.
While the fire turned out to be a minor incident, it's tense situations like today that Schuyler County Sheriff Don Schieferdecker says dispatchers see all the time.
Some people have been injured. They're unable to speak. Some people have been battered. They're unable to talk.
But Schieferdecker says if voters pass a $2.60 a month surcharge to their phone bills, the county could afford to install an enhanced 911 system.
It would come up exactly who the caller was. Through GPS, it would show exactly where the call was coming from.
It's an extra $32 a year. Some residents tell me they wouldn't mind paying.
It could really help older people or people in need to not be able to have to explain where they live.
You never know when you're going to need someone.
$32 a year for an emergency service, Schieferdecker says, is priceless should you ever need it.
What kind of price do you put on someone's life? There is no price.
Where's everybody at?
FYI, you got one officer down.
Can you give me updated status, number of patients?
A scene of mass chaos started by this girl. A shooter local law enforcement say they wouldn't have even suspected. But that's exactly the point of today's active shooter training at Flinn Stadium.
As soon as you go that way, I'll come around here.
A venue that presented its own set of challenges.
It is an open environment, so there won't be doors and walls and things to block views or to look into.
The scenario? 2 shooters opened fire during a Special Olympics event with multiple casualties. And first responders have to react quickly and safely before the situation escalates.
We've seen these events occur all across the country. We know that we need to be prepared for these type of critical events.
One there, one over here.
While police work to take down the shooters inside Flinn Stadium,
Tell me bringing them 2 reds. That's all they need.
outside EMS personnel quickly work to separate the victims by the severity of their injuries.
Found 2 shooters, right?
It's real-life training like this,
Was it a shot or was it an echo?
set in a learning environment that law enforcement officials hope will prepare first responders in case they ever have to put today's practice to use.
We need to make sure that we have our emergency responders put in those scenarios so that when the real thing actually happens, they have that training to fall back onto of what worked and what didn't work.
Jenny Dreasler, WGEM News, Quincy.
What's bothering you? Leg?
The aches and pains of life, don't forget about people behind bars.
This is the first hospice room that we made up.
It's a fact 57-year-old inmate Bertram Burkett is reminded of every day inside the walls of the Iowa State Penitentiary Hospice Unit in Fort Madison, Iowa. Burkett takes care of elderly inmates in their last days as part of the prison's ADL, or Activities of Daily Living program.
You watch them die from getting sick to where they get so sick that they're not eating.
Burkett knows it won't be long before he's the one being taken care of, as he's serving a life sentence for first-degree murder of a 3-year-old girl.
This is it. And I understand that. You know, and working hospice, it gives you that finality. You know, you understand by watching somebody else that has a life sentence die, and they're not getting out. They're not going to give them a pardon or anything to let them go home and then die at home.
Few people may think someone like Burkett, a convicted child murderer, should be getting a pardon. But the American Civil Liberties Union says even nonviolent, white-collar offenders are growing old in America's prisons. And that's costing taxpayers big money. According to the ACLU, the number of elderly inmates has skyrocketed 1,300% since the 1980s, with prisoners aged 50 and older costing taxpayers nearly $68,000 a year to keep in the slammer, compared to $34,000 a year for the average prisoner. The Iowa State Penitentiary currently houses 164 offenders over the age of 51.
Within 30 minutes, we'll probably see 30 to 35 offenders.
And Tony Foley, a registered nurse with ISP, says taking care of elderly inmates is difficult.
I don't know how we're going to do it. You know, it's definitely a problem that's not going to have any quick resolution. It's going to be something that it's going to have to be budgeted because it's going to go through the roof.
Angels are for each patient that dies in this room.
As the walls inside prisons increasingly resemble nursing homes, is there anything that can be done to cut costs when it comes to keeping the nation's graying inmates incarcerated? ISP Executive Officer Rebecca Boker says maybe not.
With life sentences and mandatory minimum sentences, we're going to have that's just a portion of reality. I think the only thing that we can do to adjust to that is to continue to build like facilities that we are building now with handicap accessible environments and try to manage that population to the best that we can.
Prison officials are saying build bigger prisons, but officials with the ACLU say expanding compassionate release programs is the way to go. Now, as far as moving aging inmates to correctional nursing homes, Boker says that could be an option, but more research needs to be done when it comes to the safety of those facilities. Jenny Dreasler, WGEM News.